Ed Bush, Colonel, Louisiana National Guard. Hey, Mr. Ed, welcome back to Keel. How you doing today?
Hey, I'm good. Good morning. Thanks for having me on.
Three North Louisiana parishes. I guess a cyber attack will be broad in our description to begin. And when we were putting the interview together, Ed Bush, Louisiana National Guard, the governor declares an emergency. How is the National Guard involved in Louisiana schools cybersecurity? Explain that one to us to start.
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think let me begin by sort of saying when the governor declares that state of emergency, which was the first time ever an emergency declaration has been given for the reason of a cybersecurity issue. What that allows to happen is it allows a lot of resources to essentially turn on, kind of get activated, and allows those things to start to happen. So ESF 17, which is also brand new, and ESF is emergency support function, and they're at GOSEP. When you look at a storm or flooding, everybody's organized by whatever their function is. So because cybersecurity is such a new real thing, they had to really give it its own ESF, emergency support function. And what that is essentially it's a team of experts from different agencies who all combine and coordinate their resources, their assets to best attack and get hit head on any type of cyber incident. So that's what happens. So yeah, the Guard has a piece of that in that we also within the military have these IT experts and these cybersecurity experts, and we've got several people who've gone off to the most intense training and the most current training on how to combat these things. So we bring our experts to the table and combine them, with other agencies and their experts, and together we're a resource for the governor to then use and say, yeah, make it happen.
So
and move out and go help.
In the governor's mind, in your mind, this attempt to get into the digital workings of 3 school districts in the state, this is a huge deal.
Oh, I think this is, and I'm not a cybersecurity guy, for lack of a better term. So I don't even know how, the full extent of how bad. But yeah, this is the kind of scenario that keeps people up at night potentially, and we've got people from all over, working together to make sure that cataclysm of events, that chain of events doesn't happen.
What is it about the attempted, and you can explain to us what the hackers attempted to do and how much, if you're allowed to, how deep into the systems they got. My first thought
Sure.
is it's 3 school districts. They wanted some social security numbers. It's obviously beyond that.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, and we're going to talk on the most simplistic of terms ever. There are things that are mildly disruptive in your life, and then there are things that are majorly disruptive. So let's just put it in terms of, you and I, the average homeowner. And when we lose our power, pretty majorly disruptive to the way we do business. If you were to lose access to your bank accounts and suddenly you couldn't get money, pretty disruptive. So for a school system to suddenly not be able to access their data, yeah, that's pretty disruptive. And that's kind of the whole point of it is the cyber attackers attack an agency or an entity where they can really bend that agency over the barrel and really kind of hold them hostage and say, well, we've got your data encrypted. Here's our terms.
So who did they go after? Who did they go after in this case? And if you were allowed to say, how successful were they?
Sure. I guess first off, you don't know what you don't know, right? We just know who was impacted. Now, I don't know if that's everybody, if that was the main target, that was we never know that, which is why it's 100% village vigilance all the time. So right now you have 3 parishes affected: Morehouse Parish, Sabine Parish, and the city of Monroe. And initially it was just the school districts, and now in Morehouse, it's the impact through the servers that were hit. It's trickled in some of the state offices as well. So, we can only speculate at this point, kind of what's the motive and what's the grand plan, and that's exactly why one of the first things the governor does is we alert the federals, certainly the federal agencies who can come and help And pretty early on, the state was in communication with the FBI and the Federal Department of Homeland Security.
You make an
This is-
interesting point because all these school systems are tied into so many other things as relates to the entire state of Louisiana. So if you can get into one, I would assume the possibility exists they could, through that initial entry, get into other stuff that's even more disruptive. Fair enough?
That's exactly the point. And your chain of protection is only as strong as your weakest link.
Email-based? Was it ransomware? You used the word ransom. I heard it. Tell me more.
No, and it was essentially email-based, and we're not in any hurry to kind of label it and say it was this until those experts say, yeah, definitively that's what this was. So we don't want to lean forward and say, oh, it was specifically this kind of thing. But yeah, it was email delivered and kind of on its way and certainly spread through contacts, email contacts, and you can just imagine the contacts that are on your phone and then my phone, and then exponentially it spreads pretty rapidly. So, yeah, it got into one server and then quickly moved on through.
Since this has happened, what kind of added measures have been installed, not only at the school systems that were hacked, that were compromised, but say at Caddo, Bossier, maybe the ones that were not affected?
Sure. Well, and a few things that happened, instantly, and when once we became aware of this. So, a few things. Louisiana State Police Cybercrime Unit, they instantly can send out detailed information and an assessment tool to all those government entities, and that happened, hour number one. That's the first thing. As soon as we became aware of this threat, instantly people go to work and they make sure the rest of the state knows what this is. How can you kind of protect and safeguard yourself? And if you don't have backups, please make backups of all your stuff. So you immediately try to do some damage control on that side and let people know what's going on. And then we kind of form, our three priorities. And pretty early on, and priority number one was let's identify the threat in those areas affected. So you spread the word and you allow all those parishes a mechanism to check their data. And if they think they have a problem, what's the number to call and how to get some people. And then once you start identifying those parishes that might have a problem, you then immediately jump in and contain and stop the spread, and we can get on the phone with those people and say, here's what you need to do to contain it. And we try to do the best we can to not just halt the spread, but protect further data loss. And then, three, we immediately moved in and said, hey, help is on the way. Here's how you can request help. And we've had, those teams of experts out there at those parishes already there for a couple of days trying to help rebuild where needed.
I had seen, you can correct me if I'm wrong or tell me or pat me on the back if I'm right. Sabine Parish's stuff was in fact encrypted. What's their status?
It's still working, and it was in fact encrypted, and I would say they're still at a critical state, and we have a lot of resources there with Sabine helping to get them back on their feet.